Hey, 420 MSP audience, Harry here. Boy, been a busy fall. So, just a chance to catch up with a surprise player in the industry. So, Blake Schwank out of Colorado Springs. So, Blake, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Harry. How's
Hey,
Seattle?
I've returned to clouds, and I hear a 99% chance of rain. Blake, I'm just coming out of Austin, Texas, with the SpiceWorks Spice World 2019 conference. It's a must-do for every IT pro and MSP. Just once in your life, it's the Comic Con of conferences. It is the funnest conference. So,
Even if you're not a
um,
Spiceworks guy.
that's right. That's
Okay,
right. Still,
I'll put it on my list.
yeah, give me one every fall in Austin. Colorado Springs, where the sun shines. Listen, if you could briefly introduce yourself, I know we have a relationship on the other side of the aisle with SMB Nation. Maybe talk about your corporate structure, and then I have a couple questions for you about the Canna tech industry.
Sure, yeah. We've been in business since 2001. My wife and I started Colorado Computer Support in Colorado Springs, and have been an MSP since about 2009. Met with you out in Vegas and started the transition to an MSP probably 10 or 12 years ago at SMB Nation. When and so we were doing that, and just a straight up MSP, about 30 employees, and then when cannabis was legalized in Washington and Colorado, and we went out and had the Bong Bowl, that horrible Super Bowl. Uh, a year after that, it started to normalize a little bit, and we got a call from a couple medical dispensaries looking for help, and
Yeah.
started looking at that as our company, but it was still early on, and so and there were still some risks, but as we evaluated it, it just is another business out
Yeah.
there to support, and and especially on the medical side, and so we took a hard look at it, and about 2016 we decided to start supporting it, but we stood up another company to separate the finances, because there were still some federal banking issues and some ancillary services that were
Well,
having
and
financial troubles.
Yeah, and Blake, if you don't mind me asking, ironically, here you and I are talking, and yesterday, I believe it was the House of Representatives passed the SAFE Act, which is the first step to allow federal level banking. That's a
Yeah,
whole other story, but it's the irony that you bring up banking and finance when yesterday the SAFE Act passed in one chamber. It has a journey, my friend, but
yeah.
every journey begins with the first step. But when you stood up the other entity, I'm interested in this, and I understand the separation of church and state and all that, but did it also cross your mind that you're setting yourself up with this Canatech entity to be acquired, because that would make it easier for someone to gobble you up, or maybe that was not your strategy?
That was part of the thought process,
Okay.
but it's not the sole reason. Um, I had it was still a big cash industry then, and I didn't want to walk into my normal Wells Fargo account with 10 grand in stinky cash, and so but nobody's paid me in cash yet. Everybody pays with a check or credit card, and so they have figured out the banking end of it, in I think in most states now.
They are getting close. State of Washington, an example I'm aware of, is state chartered credit unions can work with this industry, and in fact exhibit at shows. And let me use that as a gateway, if you will. Let's talk shows. So you shared with me that you've exhibited at a few shows. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we've done a couple MJBizCons, and went out there and a
Yep.
couple other shows, and we learned there's two different shows out there. There's their agriculture shows, the growers, the
Yep.
farmers, and the recreational ones. And those are kind of a bust for us to go to. We tried a couple of those, walk the floors, and they're really just talking about the agriculture side of it, or
Yep.
the recreational side. MJ BizCon was surprising, because this last year there were about 20,000 attendees, and probably 19,000 of them were wearing sport coats, or ties. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it's a professional organization. It's investors, it's physicians, it's other people other than the recreational side. So it's a much better conference to go to.
Yeah, as I made mention to you before, I was there. I wish I had known you were there.
Yeah,
And but I heard now promoters always puff a little bit. I heard 30,000 attendees, but you know how that goes. Every
yeah.
event promoter
We
does a
we
little bit of
our
puffing.
our first one was at the Rio, and it was about 7,000. Then it was 12, then 15, then 20, and it's really crazy. So
Yeah, and I am hearing rumors. And by the way, double thumbs up on MJBizCon. I concur. It's for me the best show in the industry. The level of professionalism, the suit and ties, and so on. But we're hearing it could be north of 50,000 this year. And one of the reasons we're hearing that is, Blake, they have taken the other hall, the other hall at the Las Vegas Convention Center. Remember, we kind of
yeah,
had this hall over here, and then I think you had some auto auction or something, loud cars going on over there.
oh yeah, there's a car show there every year that they kind of compete with, and so they moved it back 3 weeks, and so now it's in December. I signed up. I'll be there, I think, Thursday and Friday, and go to the award ceremony. So
Yeah.
I assume I'll see you out there.
Well, not only that, but the offer still stands for you and anybody listening. But we're trying to bring together with MSP Jack Smith in Denver, one of our contributors, to have an Airbnb house. Okay, so we could call it MSP house, we could call it Animal House. Folks, I'll be messaging that a little bit more, because if we get some like-minded MSPs such as yourself and Jack and a few, Josh out in LA, Blake, we could have a good time, and we could have some conversations, and quite frankly, avoid $700 or $800 a night for an adjacent hotel room, my friend. That was a little bit out of control last year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to make it in there for more than 2 nights, but we'll see. If you set up the Animal House, let me know. And
yeah, yeah, I will. And again, we'll get that out to the community, because Jack, I mean Jack, Blake, uh, Blake, that's what SMB Nation was, right? I mean, we're community, and
yeah,
we're doing it all over again. So, hey, a couple more questions before you go. So, I appreciate you leading with medical. Let me give you an update. So down at Spice World, my costume was a lab coat to be Dr. Harry with the royal blue stitching. And people come up and go, "Why are you a doctor?" First of all, some people thought I was a real doctor. And like Orange Theory had their annual convention next door, and the yoga people, they thought I was a doctor. And I'm like, no, no, ma'am, I'm not a doctor. Only on YouTube. But Blake, the point is that people are delighted to have a very serious conversation about cannabis technology if you hit it the right way. And medical is what I'm recommending in my book. Some content pieces up here on 420 MSP, my own behavior. It would not have been cool to wear the tie-dye t-shirt, and nor do I want to. Does that make sense?
right. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And there is a very serious, and I think the majority of the industry is serious. Yeah, you've got the Rex stuff going on up in Washington and Oregon, Colorado, and I think Illinois is going rec
Yep.
shortly. But the majority of the states, the majority of the industry is still on the science side of it, the medical side of it, and which is great for the industry, because we want it to be legitimate. We don't want it just to be a party. Um,
Well, and Blake, I personally believe in the medical side. I mean, if let's just take an example of palliative care. Perhaps a person's an oncology patient, and what's cannabis do? First of all, it's organic, right? I mean, subject to quality control, pesticides, and so on, but essentially it's organic. It's not a
right,
pharmaceutical pill. Number two, it helps with anxiety. One of the, one of the things that impacts people with that kind of medical condition. Number three, of course, appetite, and then number four, some basic pain relief that other things maybe don't do as well with. So it's coming to a state near you. Hey, last question before we go. And Blake, we want to get you back. We have a host of contributors, and you've got some stories to tell. So we want to have Jenny we want to get you on the circuit and help. Selfishly, you can help us build community, and hopefully we can help build your practice. But final question is, you made a point to me offline about you backed out. I'm a little unclear. You backed out the last 18 months because of the immaturity. So let's talk about the maturity continuum. Go.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we found, in Washington and Colorado 6 years ago, they were talking the green rush and everything else, and everybody was making money. And so, that made it enticing just from a business standpoint. And,
yeah, of course.
And so we figured we'd be out there getting a bunch of different retail shops and other operations. And what we found is that all these, when they legalized it, you had a bunch of guys that were grown in their basement, very successful at doing whatever they were doing. And they then opened up essentially pot shops, legal pot shops.
Yep. Black market participants. That's right.
And even upstream, you had people opening up the scientific side of it, the MIPS and the manufacturers, and then up to the growers. And it was more mature up there, but still it was a bunch of mom and pop shops. And so just like we see on the MSP side, the vast majority of businesses don't stand up and call your local MSP for support. They get the guy on Craigslist or something else. They get Joe Ponytail to do their IT support, and that's for the first 5 or 10 years of a business. Whether it's your CPA, whether it's your doctor, your dentist, your financial advisor, they typically don't open up their doors and call an MSP because we're expensive to do it right. Right? We don't want to be that cheap MSP that all of a sudden gets breached because they don't have security in place.
Yeah, boy, howdy. That was the talk of the town in Texas, those 22 cities impacted by apparently a ConnectWise based MSP. But go on, my friend.
It was a local copy of ConnectWise. And, I don't know the details of what happened, but they ended up getting breached, right? And the risk is for all of us MSPs out there. And so you really need someone that's doing the security right and has as many layers of security in place as possible, right? And so now that we're 5 or 6 years into it, so we backed out really for about 18 months or so.
Oh, okay.
18 months,
okay.
Because it wasn't serious enough. Now that other states are coming online and it's got some more maturity, we still keep abreast of what's going on out there. We've found more success on the business, on the ancillary side. So we have a great group of attorneys that provide that they're only cannabis attorneys, and so. And so it's a great relationship with them. They're a mature organization. They pay the right rates to have a real IT company. And I think that's the future, is moving up from the retail side, moving up from the lifestyle business, because I don't know how many of these businesses in Colorado have gone under, but just the competition. If you're running a lifestyle business, like in a lifestyle IT shop, if you're only a break fix guy, then the longevity of your business just isn't there. You may be able to be the Craigslist guy, but to run a real company, I think that's a better opportunity upstream on the MIPS or the above that.
Well, two final thoughts on that topic, if you don't mind. One would be you talked about the quality of service of a real MSP who, quite frankly, you get paid what you're worth. And the reason that's important, I say quality of service, is I feel the MSP, some way, somehow, if not just ethically in your head, because we all want to do good work, but maybe, there also is a contingent liability issue, and I don't want to scare anyone away, but Blake, as you know, we're dealing with a heavily regulated area with compliance, right? So it's in your best interest to tell the client, the reason you're paying for me is I'm going to do this thing right. A little bit like being a business advisor in HIPAA is an analogy, right? That we're going to do this thing right. And the reason we're going to do it right is we're being regulated. So,
and And
So that would be one thought, and then also a shout out, Blake and the people watching. We covered the entry, exit, re-entry scenario just recently with Gordon Carlisle and Todd Whitley down on the site where this video appears at 420 MSP in the vault. Go to the video called FIFO, first in, first out. And Blake, they had a very similar experience. They got in even before the cannabis was legalized in 2012 in the state of Washington, and exited for quite some time because of the immaturity. So they're sounding the exact same theme. So you're right on target. They're coming back now because of the maturity.
yeah,
So
yeah.
with that
And
said,
I
well,
think
sir,
it's also, it's a bit more, people are starting to see it as a legitimate medical industry now, and
yeah,
not just a bunch of stoners going around. And I'm sure you saw in Colorado or in Washington, like we saw in Colorado, people coming in and they called themselves refugees, but they were coming in with their kids, and they moved to Colorado because they had a kid that would take a handful of pills every day that they were able to then resolve with a little bit of oil instead of to resolve things
oh yeah,
like seizures
yeah,
and stuff. And
yeah.
so I think people are starting to see that more and more. And so I think it's just becoming an accepted industry now.
Well, that, and the reason it's good you're in early, people listening to this, quite frankly, they're in early too. If you're even having this conversation, this is like early small business server days in the late 90s. And the reason that's important on this last point you raise is once we can deal with the Schedule 1 classification at the federal level, which makes cannabis on par with heroin, once we can deal with that, quite frankly, we can do more research, like the Fred Hutch Cancer Center and so on,
Uh-huh.
will actually be allowed to do research. So, we literally don't know what we don't know at this point.
Right.
Well, hey, Blake, I know you got to run. Thanks for this month's contribution. And you know what? Let's make a point to do a segment or two at MJBiz. I believe it's roughly
That'd be
right
great.
around December 10th in Las Vegas. We're hearing 50,000 attendees. It's the best show in the industry. I'll be there. Jack will be there. Blake will be there. Blake, have a good day, my friend.
Hey, thanks. And it was great to catch up a little bit. So, and I look forward to seeing you in Vegas. So,
You betcha.
all right, call me if you need anything.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.